Welcome back to this space. Why is it that when we notice something unkind and we say so, the conversation suddenly stops being about what happened and starts being about you? 4 words do it. You're too sensitive. In one sentence, your observation, your feeling, your entire read of the situation gets turned into a character defect. The focus shifts. Now you're the problem. And you're left defending your right to feel something instead of talking about the thing that caused it. That's what I want to look at today. There's a particular ache that comes from finally working up the courage to tell someone that something they said didn't sit right, only to have them tell you that the problem is your reaction. It's a total shift in focus. 1 minute you're talking about an unkind comment, a line that was crossed. The next minute, you're defending your right to feel hurt in the first place. This is the labeling reflex, the way people protect themselves from the work of an apology by making you the one who is difficult. What happens underneath that is immediate. Your confidence erodes. You go into the conversation hoping for a moment of connection, a simple acknowledgement of how you feel, and instead, you get a diagnosis. You're overthinking it. You take things too personally. The facts of what happened disappear, replaced by an examination of your personality. And you're left standing there wondering if they're right. Looking back at every interaction you've ever had, wondering if you're the one who makes everything complicated. What this labeling does, quietly and effectively, is opt out of the relationship. If everything you say is filtered through the lens of your supposed fragility, they don't have to listen anymore. Your valid observations become outbursts. Your limits become demands. The price of staying in this friendship is the suppression of your own awareness. They don't want a friend. They want a mirror that only shows them the parts of themselves they like. When this happens inside a larger circle, the scale of it changes. Every group has a narrative, an unspoken agreement about what's funny, what's acceptable, who is allowed to push back. When you challenge that narrative, even once, the group responds like a body attacking something foreign. If you don't laugh at the joke that feels mean, or if you point out that someone's being excluded, the group doesn't look at the behavior. They look at you. You become the vibe killer, the one who makes things weird. The too sensitive label becomes a social tag that travels with you. You can feel it in how people treat you when you enter a room, a performative carefulness, a walking on eggshells energy, that is actually a form of aggression. They're telling everyone around them, and you, that you're fragile. They're creating a story where you are the problem to be managed rather than a person to be known. And you start to participate in your own exclusion. You edit yourself before you speak. You check your reactions against the group's expected response. You swallow the things you notice because you don't want to hear the phrase again. You perform a version of yourself that is easygoing. But inside, the person who sees the truth is screaming. The community you thought you had turns out to be a collective agreement to ignore the erratic tendencies in everyone's behavior. And you're being punished for keeping your eyes open. There's a stranger, darker side to this dynamic. The friends who seem to dislike you, but refuse to let you go. They criticize you. They dismiss your feelings. They label you as too much. And yet, they're the first ones to text you when they're bored. You're being kept in the circle as a target. By having a sensitive friend, they get to feel strong, or rational by comparison. You are the benchmark for everything they think they aren't. And your awareness is what makes you useful to them, because when you see things clearly, it creates the contrast they need to feel like they don't. The confusion of staying is real. You wonder why they even want you around if you're such a burden. But the truth is, they need you in the dynamic. They need someone to redirect the discomfort onto. And every time you try to leave, there's a sudden, brief kindness that feels like a reset, just enough to pull you back. One moment of warmth after a long stretch of dismissal, and you wonder if you were imagining the pattern. We stay because we've been told that long-term friendship means tolerating the difficult parts. That if you just toughen up, things will shift. But you can't toughen up against a lack of respect. You're not the difficult one. You're the one being kept in place because the dynamic needs you there. And the too sensitive label is the thing that keeps you doubting yourself enough to stay. The most damaging part of this trap is what it does to your relationship with your own perception. Eventually, you start to agree with them. You perform an internal check on your own feelings, trying to find the mistake. You look at your hurt and ask, is this too much? Am I being dramatic? Did I misread the tone? You start treating your own intuition like a piece of equipment that's giving faulty readings. And you outsource your reality to the very people who are trying to distort it. This leads to something specific. You stop trusting your own eyes. You see something unkind happen, and instead of reacting, you wait to see how everyone else reacts. If they laugh, you try to find a reason it's funny. If they stay quiet, you stay quiet. You've lost the ability to be honest with yourself because the label has taught you that your honesty is a defect. Here's what's actually happening. Being aware. Noticing the micro expressions, the shifts in tone, the things that go unsaid. That's not a character flaw. It's a form of intelligence. The people who tell you that you're too much are usually the people who don't have the capacity to meet you where you are. They're trying to shrink your world so it fits inside theirs. You're not taking things too personally. You're just noticing that things are personal. You're feeling the weight of the interaction because the weight is actually there. Seeing things clearly will often make you unpopular. That's not a comfortable truth, but it's a real one. Your feelings are not a mistake. Your discomfort is not an overreaction. It's information. It's your system telling you that something in the environment is out of alignment with who you are. The too sensitive trap exists to help other people avoid the consequences of their own behavior. If they can make you the problem, they don't have to change. You don't have to defend your awareness. You don't have to prove you're rational or easy or chill. You can just be the person who notices, who sees the room clearly, who feels things because there is something there to feel. That's not a burden, even if it's been treated like one. If this landed somewhere, if you recognize that specific loneliness of being the only one in the room with your eyes open, that recognition is real. It doesn't mean something is wrong with how you're wired. It doesn't mean you need to feel less, or see less, or react differently. It just means you've been in rooms that asked you to be smaller than you are, and you've been paying the cost of that for a while without anyone naming it. The awareness was never the problem. It was always just inconvenient for everyone else. One day, you're going to ask, is your sensitivity actually the problem, or is it just the only thing standing in the way of everyone else feeling comfortable with their own unkindness?